Hello, hello. So it's morning here for me, right? And I was just laying in my bed and God gave me this download. So hopefully this isn't too long of a message. And if I'm talking a little bit quiet, it's because my little guy's still sleeping. So the Lord was saying that your adversaries and counterfeits. Now again, if you're on the Kingdom Spouse journey, the person that's pretending to be you in your kingdom spouse's life and the person that thinks they're the real one and you're the fake, that's the fraud, that's the counterfeit. Because they're being a counterfeit version of you. They're being a counterfeit version of themselves. And when a spot is, like I've said before, say for instance, just to make it an example, on say the basketball team, if Michael Jordan is supposed to be the head star player, and somebody else comes along and say kidnaps him and ties him up and he can't play, and somebody else comes and plays his position, they're not him. Just because they're playing his position doesn't make them him. He is still him, even if he's not there. They had to go for nefarious means to get him out of the picture. And then the team wants to win, and if Michael Jordan was in his position, the team would win by say 30 points, like be 30 points in it by a big lead win. But because Michael Jordan can't play because of people's nefarious jealous actions against him, somebody else comes and plays instead, and now they lose. The team doesn't care about the jealousy. The team wants to win, so the team just wants Michael Jordan there so that Michael Jordan can win for the team and have a big lead, right? But because other people on the team are jealous of Michael Jordan, they go and find a nefarious way, like I said, of thinking in their minds, if they just kidnap him and tie him up and put him in a closet, that then one, the team won't miss him or need him, not true. And two, that they can be the star MVP and win the game, not true. And third, that then they can pretend like they're in their delusional mind that they're him, that they're the winner of the team, they're the star, right? But as you and I know, none of that is accurate. Michael Jordan would still be himself and the team would lose because they need him to be the star player, right? So the whole fact of doing that action would be that the fill-in person is a counterfeit. They're not Michael Jordan, and they're not who the team needed to be front and center, and they're not who was intended to be the MVP, right? And just because they go and follow through with this weird, nefarious plan doesn't suddenly make them Michael Jordan. You understand? Just as an example. That's what this is that these counterfeits in general, so just there's more than, it's hard to explain, but there's more than one counterfeit. The spouse that you have that entertains this counterfeit is on the kingdom spouse journey is not the only counterfeit. There's other counterfeits too, right? But with this counterfeit on the kingdom spouse journey, they've realized that your spouse has changed, right? Your spouse has made changes, especially from last year compared to this year. And why is that? Well, I already said in a password why that was because Jesus has been giving you his healing water, and you've been giving it to this spouse, right? So over time, this spouse has made some shifts and changes. This counterfeit has noticed that. But like I said before, this counterfeit hasn't changed as much as you and your spouse have. So therefore, this counterfeit is trying to fit in somewhere where they didn't belong then, and they definitely don't belong now. And they're noticing that. So they're trying to do two things. Hold on. They're trying to do two things. They're trying to scramble and try to make up for lost time. But the problem is that when this journey has been unfolding for quite some time, so you've had a lead up and a leg up on this counterfeit in this kingdom spouse journey, because you've been growing and glowing over the last just say 2 years, right? This spouse has been growing and glowing alongside you for the last year, but this counterfeit was playing around and doing all the things, living in sin, living in the world, playing with their tarot cards and their witchcraft, wasting time wishing harm upon you, wasting time trying to manipulate your spouse, doing all their, playing all their mind games, doing all these wicked things, that because of that, they're behind. They never got to grow. So again, we'll talk levels to make it make sense. So you used to be on level 5 at one point, okay? And this counterfeit was on level 1, and your spouse was on level 3, because you've always been more advanced than your spouse in this counterfeit, and your spouse has been more advanced in this counterfeit. This counterfeit is basically, from the dark side, period. Your spouse has been lukewarm, and you've been chosen and a child of God, so you walk in the light. So, and I've made words about this in the past. There's literally this separation, okay? You have over the last, just say it doesn't matter, I'll say a 2-year time frame, but it could be 6 months, could be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Over the course of time, you've leveled up from a 5 to a 10, okay? Because you've been leading the breadcrumb trail like Jesus has led you, it's like you and your spouse and this counterfeit were lost in the woods at one point in time. And the woods being, like the wilderness being basically the world, being Satan's kingdom, so to speak, right? Because once upon a time you were on Satan's team. Jesus has been leading you as the true child of God, the true, genuine, authentic one, the chosen one, out of this woods for quite some time now. Because you've been following the light of Jesus, you've been able to see your way out. It's like the whole place is dark, but Jesus is giving you light to see your way out. You've been providing a trail, like a breadcrumb trail but you know what I mean? I use that as an example, but like a trail for your spouse to follow. The spouse has been following you all along, okay? The spouse is intended to follow you because the Lord is trying to save all 3 of you. But he especially is going to save you, because he knows that if he saves you, you're especially going to try and save your spouse, okay? So ideally, like I've said before, the Lord wants to save this counterfeit, but this counterfeit is so, stuck in their ways that I don't know. This counterfeit will literally take 1 step forward and 3 steps back, and then they wonder why they haven't made any progress, and then they turn around and blame you. They think you're doing something to them to cause their progress to be shortened, but you're not. You're literally not even a part of that, and you're too busy moving forward. So you've been leaving this trail for your spouse, and the spouse has been following your trail, and because of that, if you can think of that analogy, you're of course finding your way out of this dark forest, and your spouse is as well. Your spouse is in between. You're on the light side now. You were in the dark side, but because of your growth and work that you've put in, you're on the light side now, right? And because you're on the light side now, your spouse has been, over time, because this journey has taken time, has started to see the light through the trees as well, and sees that you are in fact leading them the right way. They weren't sure in the past, because while you're trying to pull them forward and ahead, this counterfeit was also trying to pull them back. So you're just taking forward steps. Your spouse would take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And because they were doing this, it was a slow going, right? They were almost kind of trying to pull you back too, because this counterfeit was trying to pull them. But your spouse was gaining ground, but it was taking longer, because while you would try and pull them 4 steps forward, this counterfeit was trying to pull them 2 steps back. And so it was kind of like this tug of war, but because Jesus was leading you, it didn't take long before the spouse gained some ground and started to see the light for what it was, right? This counterfeit was forced to take 1 step forward because they were following the spouse. Because wherever this spouse goes, this counterfeit follows, okay? This counterfeit is like the spouse's shadow. This counterfeit tries to make it so that the spouse can't come to you. This counterfeit tries to make it like the spouse is going the wrong way. This counterfeit tries to make it like the spouse shouldn't be following the light out, and tries to make it opposite. This counterfeit is in the darkness, but they're trying to make your spouse think that where they're at is the light. You're in the light, but they're trying to make your spouse think that the light where you're at is the darkness. They're trying to switch the roles. And your spouse has been confused in the past, and confusion comes from the devil, and this counterfeit operates on Team Satan. So therefore, this counterfeit uses that confusion to their advantage, okay? So it's taken some time. But the light is starting to appear. It's no different than when it's like, midnight, it's dark out, right? But come 5, 6 a.m., we start to see the sun come up. Eventually, the sun will come out again, right? Even if it looks like it's dark at midnight, the sun is on its way in a few short hours, right? Well, you knew that because you were already sitting at 5, 6 a.m. You already saw the sunrise. But this spouse was still sitting at like 1, 2 a.m. when it's still kind of dark, so they weren't sure. And this counterfeit is sitting at 11, 12 p.m. when it is still dark, okay? This counterfeit doesn't want to leave Satan's kingdom, so therefore the Lord's trying to save them, but that is up to I'm not going to get into that. That's between them and the Lord. But this counterfeit is on Team Satan, and you're on Team Jesus. This counterfeit is trying to pull your spouse back. But Jesus and you are pulling the spouse forward. And this counterfeit is operated by the devil. And so what this counterfeit has been doing is they've been scrambling to try to either change or to make it appear as though they've changed. Okay, just to try to catch up some lost ground, because they're starting to see that you're on level 10, the spouse, you were on level 5, you're on level 10, the spouse is on level 3 and they're on level like 6, and they themselves were on level like 0 and they're on level 1. Like they are realizing that you've broken free, that the spouse is on their way to breaking free, and that they haven't gained any ground. So they're starting to notice these bigger gaps in separation between all of you. Okay, so they're trying to do two things. They're trying to copy you and act like you, mostly with the intention to try to confuse your spouse. Okay, so that this is an old tactic. This isn't new. This counterfeit's been doing this all along. This is one of the ways that the counterfeit has been able to make your spouse take 2 steps back, is by the counterfeit pretending that you're the dark one and they're the light one. Okay. And second, the other thing they're trying to do simultaneously, because that's not going to work, it's never worked and it never will work, is to try to scramble to make up for lost time. So the Lord was, and so the first part of this message is a message actually that the Lord gave me on Friday. And then this part here is the part that the Lord gave me this morning. So the Lord was saying on Friday to me that, Thursday, Friday time, so last week, that the counterfeit was busy trying to pull your spouse back into the darkness, and back onto Satan's team, because the counterfeit has noticed growth on your spouse. It was to try to copy you and basically brainwash your spouse into thinking that they're the good one, they're the chosen one, they're the one with the gifts, everything that you represent, that's them. And that everything that they represent is you, that you're the dark one, you're the fraud, you're the manipulator, you're all this stuff. They're trying to basically switch shoes. You have brand new shiny shoes, they have old ratchet shoes. They're trying to say you're the one wearing the old ratchet shoes and they have the new shiny shoes. The difference is, though, they haven't done any work to acquire those new shiny shoes. And the Lord knows that. So the Lord was busy spending the weekend blowing up that little strategy, because the Lord is tired of this counterfeit. The devil doesn't want me to talk. The Lord is tired of this counterfeit wedging themselves in. Don't mind my voice. It's the devil doesn't want me talking, so my voice is getting raspy and dry and cracked, and I'm coughing. It's okay. I'm not going to stop. I'm moving forward. The Lord doesn't want this counterfeit trying to brainwash and manipulate your spouse. The Lord doesn't want this counterfeit trying to copy and imitate you and pretend that when you've done all this work and you're following Jesus and it's the truth, that you're the bad one, they're the good one, when that's absolutely backwards. The Lord doesn't want Satan getting any type of recognition. There's many things here. And the Lord is tired of this counterfeit trying to go against you and make your spouse go against you. Okay. So the counterfeit was trying this tactic all last week. The Lord was spending the weekend blowing up that tactic because the Lord is tired of it. And this counterfeit has tried this tactic many times. in the past, deeper in the past, it was more successful. But because your spouse has started to actually see that daylight breaking and that light through the trees, they know that the way that you're going is the right way. They know that because so much time has went by and so much ground has been gained that the spouse, the counterfeit, can no longer brainwash the spouse into thinking. Think about it. If you're in the woods and you start heading and you're lost and you start heading in a direction, you start to see light from whatever, a home or something, a road, whatever, on through up ahead, you're not going to think, oh, that must not be the right way, I better turn around and go back the way I came. Like, you're going to head towards that light, right? If you were really physically stuck in the woods. That is what's happening with the spouse, is that they see that light and so they're following it. But the counterfeit is trying to do the same tricks that they were doing a month or 2 or 3 or 4 ago, that maybe were more successful because the spouse was deeper in the woods back then and therefore couldn't see the light. But because you've gained ground and the spouse has been following you, they've gained ground, right? And they're starting to see the separation, where the counterfeit stands and where you stand. One's in light and one's in dark, and you're not the one in the dark. So the counterfeit has realized that there's too much of a separation and that the spouse is too far ahead now, and so are you. So they're scrambling to try to make up for lost time, but it's not going to happen. You cannot make up for 2, 3, 4 years of time in like a week or two. It's not possible. Not to mention that this counterfeit is still stuck deep on Team Satan, right? They refuse to repent, and if they think they've repented, the Lord has not heard it, nor is the Lord paying them any attention. They think that they've done all the boxes. I've fasted, check. I've done some prayers, check. I've, shown some worship, check. I've, donated some money to a charity, check. Like, they think that the scripture says faith without works is dead, right? So they think that if they have faith, so if they do works, then they've checked all the boxes. But it goes backwards too. Works without faith is dead. So meaning that this counterfeit may be doing works, but they don't have faith. So therefore the Lord, they managed to see that 2 plus 2 equals 4, but 3 plus 1 equals 4 as well, meaning that they think that, well, faith without works is dead. So if I just do the works, then I'm good. But they don't realize that it also goes backwards too, like a palindrome where works without faith is dead. So they also have to have faith and not just works. And even if they have faith and works together, it's still not enough, because what they don't realize, because I put out a word a couple days ago saying they just don't get it. What this counterfeit doesn't realize, and what all these counterfeits don't realize, because you have counterfeit family members, they pretend that they care about you and they don't. You have counterfeit acquaintances in your life, or even friends, where they pretend that they got your back. Oh, sorry. They're on your side and they're not. They backstab you, they betray you, they talk about you behind your back, they gossip about you, all kinds of stuff, right? So you actually have a lot of counterfeits in your life. And so does your spouse. These people in your spouse's life, this spouse has family members that are counterfeits as well, that they think care about them, and they really don't. They have friends in their life that they think that these are their friends, but at surface level, and these friends really truly don't care about them. And this has been going on for some time, that this spouse has had this fake counterfeit spouse in their life, and they're starting to realize it. They've actually been realizing it a while. But this counterfeit has delusionally thought that they've been successful at manipulating your spouse, and they haven't been. This spouse of yours also has counterfeit friendships and family members in their life, just like you do. But once upon a time, you used to fall into their traps as well and not see it for what it was, right? And that was your spouse too, especially when once upon a time you all were in this dark woods together. But because you've over time, through the light of Jesus Christ, started to see things for what they really are and see your way out, you've been able to save yourself, and come up and out of these traps that the devil is ultimately trying to lay out for you time and time and time again, through this person, that person, this person, this person. Your counterfeit past relationships, your counterfeit family members, your counterfeit old friends, etc. And I say old because now that you see the light, they're no longer in your life anymore, thanks to the light of Jesus showing you that, right? Had Jesus not came into your life, you would have stayed stuck in those dark woods, but you wouldn't have been able to save your spouse. Your spouse was further behind you, so it took them more time to come to these realizations that you did, right? But they're starting to see the light on these things, and they're starting to kind of do what you did in the past at one point in time, was try and eradicate these things, okay? By you following the light of Jesus, it supplied the way to go, the blueprint, the map, so to speak, and your spouse has been able to follow you and come to these same conclusions that you once came to, okay? This counterfeit knows that if this spouse comes to this full realization, this spouse is going to leave this counterfeit in the dust and in the past, just like you left your counterfeits in the dust and in the past. That's why this counterfeit has been trying so hard to try to wedge themselves in your relationship, to stop you, to stop the spouse, to do this, to do that, because Satan's puppeting them, okay, to do these things. But you've come too far, and so has the spouse. And the Lord is, you're too close to the Lord, that before maybe this counterfeit could do these tricks for like, just say 2 weeks and get away with it to a degree. Well, now today, this counterfeit tries these tricks for like 1 week, and the Lord is on them by the weekend. There's no more time to play. Like I said, the sands in the hourglass are running out. The Lord is showing no more mercy and no more lenience on these counterfeits and this counterfeit spouse and what they're trying to do in your life and in your spouse's life. The Lord has had enough. So before this counterfeit could do 80% and there'd be a week delay, say. Now today this counterfeit does 20% and there's like a 2-day delay. The Lord is no longer entertaining this counterfeit and allowing them to do what they do against you and against the spouse. So like I say, all last week, this counterfeit spouse was doing these old tactics that they've done in the past, that they saw proved somewhat successful, but the only reason why they proved somewhat successful was because the Lord allowed it to appear that way, to be somewhat successful, not to appease this counterfeit, but because this spouse of yours, the kingdom spouse, still had lessons to learn, right? Because like we've talked about before, the Lord uses pain and hardship and difficulty to teach lessons. So all this counterfeit is ultimately brought to your spouse as pain, difficulty, and hardship. And the Lord allowed that so that your spouse could learn from it. Because the Lord uses pain, difficulty, and hardship to teach us, to discipline us, right? But this counterfeit has done enough pain, hardship, and difficulty and you have led the way long enough that it's became pretty clear for the spouse as to who's who, what, where, when, how, why, okay? And so because you've gained enough ground and the spouse has gained enough ground, the Lord is shutting down this counterfeit. This counterfeit is either going to have to move forward like you all have or stay stuck where they are. Those are the two options for them. Option C of, hey, I stay where I am and I try and pull these two down, that's no longer an option. And they're seeing that. They're seeing that crystal clear, that it's not an option anymore for them. That's why they're scrambling. They've been trying to copy you. It used to kind of work in the past. It's no longer working. So now they're trying to scramble to make up lost ground. It's not going to work. The Lord is not going to allow Satan's puppet to gain the same amount of ground in weeks that you gained in months or years, right? So therefore, this counterfeit is going to just find themselves going in circles and falling down every time. And that's what the Lord intended, okay? So just as an update, the counterfeit if this situation applies to you, this is the Lord's message, okay? Through the Lord to me, to you. The counterfeit was spending last week and has been spending the last little while here trying to switch the roles and trying to make you look like you're them and they're you, and trying to copy and imitate you, okay? They were pulling out all the stops because they know they're in the 11th hour. The Lord has spent recently, the last few days, whatever it's been, shutting down what they've been doing. So unraveling all of their work, okay? Unraveling all their manipulation, everything. The Lord has made it very clear to this counterfeit what's what, and to you what's what, and even to your spouse what's what, okay? So that's one thing. Then the second thing is that the counterfeit has realized that didn't work, because we just had the full moon last week. They like to try to use the full moon to their advantage, or so they think, but it doesn't even work. Where they think, okay, I'm gonna do. So how the counterfeit thinks is, they're like, and again, this is the counterfeit spouse, but this is a lot of the counterfeits in your life and in your spouse's life. They think that they're gonna do these tactics at the new moon, the new moon. Then they know that the new moon will fade away, so then they're going to do these other tactics on after the new moon. Then they're going to do these other tactics at the full moon, and then when that doesn't prove successful and the full moon fades away, then they're going to do these other tactics after the full moon. And they have this consistent week by week, day by day itinerary that they try to follow, and they try to take advantage of the full moons and new moon cycles, right? And that's old. I was making words on that like a year ago. They know that you know what you know, whether it be because they read tarot on you or something, but they know that you know what everything is. Like I talk a lot of times about puzzle pieces, right? You each have a puzzle. They know that your puzzle is pretty much complete. And they know that your spouse is on the way to completing theirs as well. And so and the Lord is crushing down all of their tactics one by one, over and over and over again. So they know that they have, but like I've said in past words, you're playing chess and they're playing checkers. They have very limited moves that they can do. And so their tactic has just been to keep reframing and retrying and resetting the same tactics over and over and over again, right? But like I said, you're like out of the woods, and the spouse has started to see the exit way out of the woods and the light through the woods. You've both come too far, that these old tactics, because they used to do them on you, and then they saw that you were gaining ground, so they started to pull them out on your spouse. And they still will alternate between you and your spouse and you and your spouse and you, of alternating these old tactics. And maybe a year ago they worked, and they could have worked if it was still last year, but you've come so far that they no longer work, and they aren't working on the spouse anymore, right? So this counterfeit had a choice of if they were going to move forward as well. And like I've made words on this in the past, the Lord was giving them kind of like a little time frame, to give them grace and mercy to see what they were going to do, ultimately knowing what they were going to do, but still letting them test and see themselves and do the work like you and your spouse have. But this counterfeit has remained stagnant, and this counterfeit doesn't get it. They're frustrated. They're like, okay, I've done everything, because the devil has made this counterfeit think that you're the bad guy and they're the good guy. They think that because they're the good guy, or so they think, and they've fasted and they've prayed and they've done this and this and this, they don't understand why they're not getting the results they're expecting, why things are going in the order that they're going. Why the spouse is moving forward and they're not, why the spouse isn't coming back to moving backwards in their direction towards them, why you're so far ahead, because in their mind they think that you're the bad guy. Okay. So they don't understand why the bad guy, so to speak, is prospering and the good guy isn't, especially when they've done all these so-called works. Okay. Not understanding that they are wrong. They are delusional. You're not the bad guy. You really, truly are a child of God. You are what you claim to be. You're not lying. You're not manipulating. You're not manipulating your spouse. You're not lying to your spouse. You're not lying and manipulating to you, to anyone, to nothing, okay? If they've heard gossip about you, that gossip wasn't true. Or, depending what it was, maybe it was true 5 years ago. You know what I mean? Or, they've misjudged you. They've seen you and they've thought that you're this. And then also, because they work for the devil, their pride and ego is super huge, so they automatically think that they're the best thing since sliced bread, right? Not realizing and understanding that anybody who walks through the path of Jesus Christ is going to be considered the next thing since sliced bread, because the best thing since sliced bread was Jesus Christ himself. So therefore, his followers and those who follow him, they are also considered the best thing since sliced bread. So if you're not truthfully, wholeheartedly following Jesus Christ, the Lord considers you not the best thing since sliced bread. So that would probably make sense why you, since you truly follow Jesus, are up ahead and they're not. They don't get it, but it's really straightforward and simple. It's that you're truly a child of God. You really do follow the Lord. You know, you really do pray to the Lord. You really are a good person. You know, you really have good intentions, you know, things like that. And they know that. So what they're trying to do is trying to make it look like you're not who you say you are. You're a fake, you're a fraud, you actually have bad intentions, you're this, that, and the third, you're a liar, manipulator, deceiver, and these are all things that they are. They need to look into a mirror, okay? But they're too busy trying to project everything that they are onto you and trying to suck up everything that you are into them, and it's not working. It never has worked. It maybe appeared like it worked in the past because the Lord allowed that appearance because the Lord was teaching people lessons at that time. But the lesson learning is over. You've learned a lot of the lessons already, and so has this spouse. It's forward movement now. And this counterfeit is realizing that as you're moving forward, so is this spouse, and they're getting stuck behind. But that's because the choice that they made. The Lord gave them a very big window of time, grace window, to move forward and to make different choices for themselves, but they chose to waste that time and play around, trying to mess with your situation, trying to mess with your spouse and their mindset, trying to mess with your reputation, trying to mess with who you are as a person, you know, and ultimately they were going against God. They're going against Jesus. The very source that they think that they are close to was the very source that they were attacking. Because you really truly are God's child and you haven't done anything wrong. You've been making it very clear in whatever ways you may be doing it that you really truly are who you are. You know, you've been following a righteous lifestyle. You've been repenting for your sin. You've been trying to help and raise up this spouse when given the opportunity to, right? You've been following the Lord, you know, and having the right heart set or mindset, the right heart and the right clean hands, you know. So you've been doing everything that the Lord's wanted you to do. And the one that's messed up is this counterfeit. And they were the reason, well, one of the reasons why your spouse was messed up too. But like I say, this spouse has other counterfeits in their life besides just this one. And the spouse needs to go through the same steps, well, similar steps that you went through to discover that, like you had to, okay? So anyways, yeah, okay, the Lord is saying that's pretty much it. So yeah, that is pretty much it. So if this message resonates with you, if you're on the Kingdom Spouse journey, and not just that, this message can also apply if you just have counterfeits in your life, not even a spouse and their like romantical situation, but just if you have counterfeits in your life. And guaranteed, if you're a true child of God or a chosen one, you do have counterfeits in your life. Whether they be romantical or familiar, of whatever, family, friendship, whatever, work associates, and maybe at one time in the past you saw something weird, but you were falling into those traps. You no longer are, right? Your spouse is falling deeper in those traps in the past as well, but they too are moving forward. This counterfeit is stuck in the trap that they're in, and that's between them and the Lord. They're going to have to get right with the Lord. And say in this last 2 weeks, just hone in on these last 2 weeks. And these last 2 weeks, you've been moving forward. You've been focusing on the Lord, trying your hardest, even though you've been being projected upon, to do your best and be your best, right? This kingdom spouse of yours has been learning things, wading through the lessons, similar path that you were on in the past. They've been walking that path these last couple weeks, okay? Trying to move forward. This isn't the right way, this is. 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, or 1 step back. You know what I'm saying? Like doing the dance, right? This counterfeit has been spending these last couple weeks while you all were doing that. And not just this counterfeit, but all the counterfeits that are in your life and in your spouse's life, have been spending these last couple weeks simultaneously trying to pretend they're someone they're not, trying to make you look like you're someone you're not, trying to make themselves look righteous when they're not, trying to make you look wicked when you're not, trying to brainwash this spouse, trying to manipulate this spouse, trying to be very creative, coming up with different plots and plans for themselves and you and the spouse and all this stuff, right? To try to make you second guess and your spouse second guess, right? But it hasn't been working, and they were all basing it around the full moon we just had and trying to use that full moon to their advantage, just like they did in April, just like they did in March and February and January. They've been at this whole year of 2024 so far. But again, the Lord has nudged you and reminded you who you are and whose you are and where you are. And he's also been nudging the spouse as to what the true path is. And meanwhile has been kiboshing everything that this counterfeit and all these counterfeits have been doing, and setting the record straight, so to speak, right? And the Lord is pushing back this counterfeit and clearing the way for you and the spouse to continue advancing forward. And now the full moon's gone and passed and over, and now this counterfeit is realizing that these things didn't work. So therefore, this counterfeit is scrambling to try to gain some lost ground in a very short amount of time, and it's not possible. This is ground that has taken you a very long time to walk, and your spouse a long time to walk. How is the counterfeit going to boost themselves on level 10, where level 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, where you and your spouse are when they've been on level 1 this entire time? It's not going to happen, especially not in a condensed amount of time. So anyways, I hope this finds who it needs to find. I hope it resonates. I hope it finds you well. And so yeah, this was just a little update as to what's been going on the last couple of weeks. And yeah, I'll be back with more information when and if the Lord leads me to. So take care. God bless.